Welcome to Word Tales, where you get to learn the origin of the things you say. Today we have a word that, for better or worse, is getting used more and more these days. It's a deceptively simple word with a surprising backstory. The word is boycott. A boycott occurs when a group or community refuses to do business with a person or an entity. These can be huge events, like when the United States boycotted the 1980 Olympics. Or they can be more modest, like when I decided to boycott Felicity after she cut her hair. But where does this word come from? Surprisingly, the word boycott actually comes from a person's name, and it dates back to the year 1880. Captain Charles Boycott was an English land agent who oversaw farmland in Ireland owned by John Crichton, 3rd Earl Erne. Farming was a huge industry in Ireland, and most of the land was owned by a small handful of absentee landlords. Now, these landlords paid people like Boycott to manage the land and, among other things, collect rents. In 1880, Boycott and his tenants got into a rent dispute brought on by a bad harvest. This ultimately led Boycott to evict his tenants from their farms. He sent process servers and constables to serve eviction notices, which by law had to be given to the head of the tenant's household. The tenants tried to fight back. When constable tried to serve a woman named Mrs. Fitzsimmons, she not only refused to accept the notice, she also began waving a red flag to let everyone else know what was happening. Suddenly, women all over began to arrive and pelt the process servers and cops with rocks and manure. The ladies won the day, but the matter wasn't over. The tenants turned to a powerful tool of civil disobedience: ostracizing. To ostracize a person means to, in effect, exclude them from society. In this case, it meant that the townspeople began to treat Captain Boycott as though he didn't even exist. Kind of an old-time ghosting. Employees left, farmhands quit, and soon Boycott had no workforce, leaving him to manage Lord Erne's estate by himself. Ostracizing caught on, and soon blacksmiths, postmen, and even laundry workers stopped working for him. Boycott was completely isolated. Eventually, the British government sent an expedition to the farm to aid Boycott in bringing in his crops. This was a public relations disaster in Ireland and a financial boondoggle for the crown. It cost about £10,000 to bring in the relatively meager harvest. For reference, this works out to today's dollars to be about £1.2 million, or about $1.6 million. Ultimately, the Irish people won the battle. In the aftermath of what became known as the Low Mask Affair, a new land law was enacted and, among other things, formalized the principle of dual ownership of land between the landlords and the tenants, and set up a commission that would set rents. And the word? Well, at some point in 1880, an Irish priest named Father John O'Malley was asked to come up with a word for ostracizing that average folks could understand. He thought, and it was allegedly replied, how would it do to call it to boycott him? By 1888, the word was safely ensconced in the dictionary, and within a few years it had spread around the globe. And Charles Boycott? He continued on as a prosperous land agent. He traveled the world and took an interest in horse racing. He evidently had no ill will toward Ireland after the Low Mask Affair, because he traveled there many, many times afterwards. Boycott died on a cruise to Malta in 1897, but his name lives on. And now you know. I'm Adam Brown, and this has been Word Tales.